Welcome, everyone, to our third out of 4 in a series of sustainability exploration and education for us here at Christ Church. And tonight we have Catharine Reinitz with us, and she'll be talking really about the work that folks are doing in a variety of municipalities, including our own, for sustainability and how they figure out what baselines are and why that's important, and because those will help us make good decisions about what projects to tackle. Yes? Yes. I think I want to make sure that I'm speaking intelligently but not stealing your show.
You're not. Next slide, please.
Okay, so please, a warm welcome for Catharine Reinitz.
Great to have
You can join another table.
I'm putting my coat here, and I will. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for making it out tonight. I know I want you to have stamina, though, for next Thursday, when we have Dr. Knapp coming from the University of Wyoming, the Hobbs School of Environmental Science. And I'll have something to say a little bit about Laramie. But I don't want you to be scared. I want you to enjoy your meal. There's only one scary slide, I think, because of the numbers. But if you're a numbers person, this is the top for you. And I'm convinced that Cody should do energy audit, and that just involves looking at public records of the utility bill, how many kilowatt hours, how much it costs, and then looking at emissions and counting those by a formula. And so I'm going to show you what Red Lodge did, what Laramie's done, what Lander's done. And so the very top corner of this slide, the top left, that's going to be our last slide. So let me just kind of punch you through what is a baseline inventory. Oh. Okay. We were going to have Catherine Eklund from Red Lodge tonight, but she couldn't make it. And so that's why you have me. But
We like you.
there are other people that are in the room, and in January 2021, let me just say, in 2016, Catherine Eklund worked in Red Lodge as what was called the Energy Corps, and it was a part of AmeriCorps. And Montana had this funding for interns to go to municipalities and help them look at their records and think about sustainable actions. And there was a couple of important initial acts that were going on in Congress at the time, and funding was available to do these things. So Catherine was in my mind, pretty early. Lander, and that's Ariel Green at the top, middle. He came here last May. I don't know if some of you were at the new Game and Fish building. And Ariel told us about the LCAN, or LanderCAN, which is the acronym for the Lander Climate Action Network. They sort of got going in 2020. They took advantage of Zoom. This was a Zoom meeting. It was a total of 1 hour and 19 minutes, and I devoted myself to 26 minutes of it. Because then I thought that would be enough. And then I knew about the Red Lodge municipal audit, and I knew that Lander was ahead of the game. So what was interesting to me was to also listen to Laramie, Gary from Laramie. I wish his name was Larry. That would be easy. And I don't have his last name off the top of my head. But Laramie, that population is big. They have the University of Wyoming. Their initial citizen group had a deep pool. So I want to try to emphasize some of the things about the different cities, and then we'll get to Cody. But so first, let's go to Red Lodge. And Catharine Buchanan, like I said, she was part of the Energy Corps, and her job was to calculate the emissions and the costs for the city of Red Lodge. Because now here, this is the scary slide, so go ahead and just chew. I wish my friend Sharon Miller were here because she loves numbers like I do. So the whole point of doing energy audit of the city is that then you can know where to target, and then also then measure your success and then know your challenges. And it's for people on Earth Team and the Park County Citizens for Sustainability, I guess I was sort of holding back, like assessment, shishmeshment, we know we need to do it, just start changing everything. And now I'm convinced it really is important to have a baseline. So what they do in 2016 is basically it's converting your kilowatt hour. So I just took a number in the red down here, 23,000 kilowatt hours, and plugged it into a calculator that's going to convert that to how much metric tons of carbon dioxide it could be emitted. And the conversion is in the middle there. So you start with so many pounds of carbon dioxide, which you can't weigh a gas. It's a gas. Huh. Fear not. What if you froze that gas? It'd be dry ice. And now, can you put that on a scale and weigh it?
Yes.
Voila! Okay, so every gas does have its weight. And then this is just a conversion from metric tons and pounds. So for carbon dioxide, 1 metric ton is equal to 2,200 pounds. And then that's just because we talk with the British and the Europeans, and a pound's a pound the world around. So anyways, right now, 2019, not 2016, this greenhouse gas emission factor is 4.33 times 10 to the minus 4 metric tons for every kilowatt hour used. This isn't saying what do you think you're going to use or what it says on the appliance. It's coming from your utility bill, what was used. So many kilowatts. Okay, so there was really nothing hard about what Catharine Buchanan had to do. They just had to go to the different buildings. Well, and let me just point out that amount of emissions is equivalent to 12.2 acres of forest capturing carbon dioxide in a year. Just growing and being there. And I don't know what our city total kilowatt hours are going to be. I haven't done the audit yet. But then we'll know, and we'll also know how much it costs. Those are in the records. And then let me just point out one more thing, is that you could also just use fuel costs. So say you wanted to electrify your fleet of vehicles. You could sort of estimate emissions by looking, so this is what the police department, they have a credit card, they go get gasoline and they fill up their car. So looking at the credit card receipts, you know how much that fuel costs, and then you can convert fuel to carbon dioxide emissions as well. Okay, so the numbers aren't hard to come by. You just use the utility bills. And so that's what Red Lodge did. And so now I'm going to show you, did anybody bring pie? Because this is the time for the pie charts. I guess I didn't even think about water treatment. But all of the this is the energy to have their water treatment. They have a public pool. They have public restrooms by their parks. They have water treatment to take what goes out, get cleaned up before it goes further out. And the pumps and the circulation and the maintenance, that to run all of the equipment, they were spending $100,000 a year. And then you can imagine if you look at this, well, the city hall and police station, those need to be lit. People work there. They need to have heat. So the energy costs, in one comparison, this is why this pie has water treatment compared to everything else. This next pie is slightly similar. It's pecan pie compared to chocolate chips. In this case, they didn't use water treatment, but another thing that took a lot of energy were the streetlights. And then the cost for the fuel and the city hall and police station buildings had those costs, so there. And then it actually sort of showed that the public works, that there are places, there are buildings that could be more energy efficient. Or we could lower the cost if we, could get another way to pay for that kilowatts to heat things. They don't have a lot of big parks and big mowers, but those were the things that stood out by just doing the simple assessment. I mean, it took 9 months. Catherine wasn't alone. She had to go to the city people, ask for the record of this month, this, and see what the kilowatts were, put it in a spreadsheet. But it was all very doable. And then they had these numbers to compare. What were the energy that they were using? And then I think this is more interesting, which sectors? So, yeah, water treatment was 50% of their budget. It was $100,000 or $200,000. The street lights were really expensive. Buildings, the heat in the buildings, if we could get that, we want the same amount of heat, we work there. We go there, it's for the public, but we need to not pay so much for it. Or could we get more heat for less? And then they weren't afraid to look at their vehicle fleet because they were burning fuel and that was contributing a lot to emissions. So there was cost, there was the energy used, then some of those, that if you like to see the numbers from this table, you could get that pie chart. Don't be scared. But again, $100,000 just for the water treatment out of a total of $200,000. And then the bottom line there is showing their emissions were 1,910 megatons of carbon dioxide.
Catherine, am I right that the water part of this was a complete surprise?
I don't know, it was a surprise to me.
It was a surprise to them too. They did not think that was going to happen.
And the reason I always sort of dress my talks like, why did I bring this? To remind us about water. It's a stretch, I know it's a sweat. It's blue and you're paying attention. Because when we did our survey at the wrap up of our series, last year, we got sort of a ranking of what we felt were the projects that maybe we should tackle next. We knew we needed to keep meeting. That was the next step, was to keep meeting. And water was a really high thing on our list, and people care about it. It's not political. We all need water, we love water. I was going to mention this too. I could talk about the kidney right now.
Don't. Oh, sorry.
I know. Well, the thing is, the water treats that much for what it's emitting. That's sort of the point. And so your kidney is actually a hog for your cellular energy, and it filters your blood. It's super important. And the way that the nephrons are organized is fascinating, and I do want to tell you about it. But it's like if I were to blow up what a nephron looked like, it would look like a big cobra that makes a big U, and then has like another part of a tail. And every region of that cobra snake has different properties in terms of filtering out the stuff that's smaller than glucose, concentrating your urine and filtering your blood. And it takes a lot of energy to clean up and get rid of your waste, and then also regulate water so that you can take it back to your body. I mean, the kidney is super important, but it demands a lot of cellular energy. And so that it's a hog compared to like the liver that just does everything for everybody. It doesn't take up very much cellular energy at all. But water treatment is expensive in the real world and in living systems. To filter, I'm just saying there's a parallel there. Nobody else giving this talk would mention the kidney at this point.
Okay, I'm glad.
Okay.
had a terrible outbreak of giardia, what, 5 years ago?
I don't know the statistics,
Oh,
but
yeah, it was like, ooh, did you drink water in red light? So maybe they're being extra.
that and okay, so I mean that wasn't that hard. That was a whole lot of work, but we could just look at the graphs and these are what sort of made sense. And since they're not using sustainable methods, the buildings for heat were emitting. Since they weren't using methods that are available to treat the water, they were emitting. And then because their vehicle fleet is still a 2-stroke engine or more, they're emitting. And so, again, that chart in table form. So there's nothing, and then the bottom line is that they know. And this was, they used a conversion factor, remember that ugly math page? So theirs was from a 2016 freely available Environmental Protection Agency calculator. And nowadays, people are paying, well, communities that are doing this, they'll get a software package and it costs like $600 a year. But, so I'm sort of baiting you for what's coming. Okay, so Red Lodge, and then look at this, who used vehicles and the fuel. The public works were a little bit more than the police department. And planning. But in Red Lodge, those departments fall under the operations of the city of Red Lodge. And then, so what they learned, and they were using, again, this is from 2016, and the million British thermal units, you know, that England, God's own country, was keeping track of this before we were. I mean, even in World War II, they knew they had some emission problems. And so the conversion and knowing how gases behave in the biosphere, and that's one of the things to point out. Wyoming, we are nothing in terms of world population, but we account for at least 2% of the greenhouse gases in the world. I mean, so per capita, it looks like we're like the worst citizens there ever were because of but we know that not to be true. But I guess that just speaks again to our importance of, I mean, I really feel like we should be eating our dishes and we could be doing so much more. And the point is to be positive about that, not anything but, because that's what humans, we do. We care about each other. We care about where our sustenance comes from and what we can do with it. And we want to do better, and technologies are coming.
Is that because of the coal that we drank?
Yeah, a big one.
Any other energy?
Yeah, and then, you know, I won't go, I'm gonna stay with there's a lot of things we can, when you do an assessment, there's so much information. So that's what's good about it. What's bad about an assessment, there's so much information. Okay, so they learned that their street light things were too expensive. And so since 2016, Red Lodge has really, they've got now a public works department. They have a person on city staff that is in charge of keeping up with what are the kilowatt hours usage, what is the calculation of our emissions, how many clippers have you changed over instead of being like a gasoline engine, they're now electric. The water treatment's being fixed. They have, and they're actually at the stage of making goals to reduce their emissions by 50% by 2050. So they got, one of the things to point out is Red Lodge is not a huge city like Laramie. They started off with a volunteer citizen group just like us. They got interest from the city employees and staff. So some of the volunteers that are part of the citizen group actually do work for the city of Red Lodge. And so they are now the ones test driving the new electric vehicles or test driving the clippers. And so I think that's a really important piece because the people that are using the upgraded information, and then they're a stakeholder. And that's probably something I wish if we had a bigger group, and next week we will. The point is, we're all stakeholders. You just need to step up and identify yourself as one and bring your talents to the table, because that's what we need. We need more people to recognize this, that they have a stake in it. That's making me hungry. So Laramie has 32,000 people, and they have a really good citizen group. They partnered with the University of Wyoming. They have what's now called the Environmental Advisory Committee, and they have a city employee that really works with them, the city and the county, to keep track of the emission reductions and ensure the implementations. They got blue sky grants. The city of Laramie has a huge solar array now that the city gets to use. They drew their volunteer citizens from professor heads in business, in sustainability, geology, biology, environmental science. They have a capstone course in sustainability. So they're way ahead in terms of having a fleet of vehicles that pick up the recycling, but their challenge is they don't have control over their landfill. And Laramie's a big flow through, you know, we got I-80, you know, we do have, they're so far ahead of us that I think that we're just as good as Laramie. We have PhDs here, but we have Yellowstone. We have we have the Historical Museum of the West. We have access to one of the first hydroelectric water sources for electricity.
We do.
We have engineers. So,
Yes, we
I
can.
mean, we could maybe get, I don't know if they'll call it the Blue Sky Grant, it might be called something else, but we have solar panels on this church.
Amen, sister, preach it.
We do have a city, this is the thing that's been my biggest shock this year. The water treatment was a surprise from Red Lodge's thing that we looked at last year. This year is that our city has already done so many things I don't even know about. Again, I think that strikes for our importance of an assessment, because we're gonna still make it better. But so, before I mention what we're gonna do about Cody, this is just in case you have a question and I'm going too fast or too slow. Because I'm not gonna tell you about Cody just yet. But,
I want to take biology with you.
okay? Yeah. I'll have to think about it.
Kidneys.
I'm not sure if I'm ready for the Old Testament. I had it in college. It was one of my first courses. The Old Testament. I scribbled in my Bible. And so I wanted to tell you a little bit about Lander, because they are not that populated. They don't have a university. I don't know what it was, Cap, but we sort of got in trouble for saying the word climate or Lander. And I do know, don't get me wrong, I'm with you, Cody. I'm not necessarily moving to Jackson. I just didn't understand at the time that Cody's got to do it Cody's way. And that's what I've learned. Every place has had to do it their way, but we're not alone, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel, that's sort of my point. So I really like that Lander has really actually done a lot of work so that we don't have to. And they were really helpful coming up here and telling us what they did, how they got going, where their funding came from. And then this is also a commercial break for the Wyoming Outdoor Council, because that team, some of their top people live in Lander. And then we also have Hap, and he made a lot of us members, so.
Anybody else want to join?
But they're not to be underestimated in terms of their know-how, what's going on in the legislation, the shortcuts, the importance of a baseline assessment. I mean, so we have access to help. It's not a competition. We're all here to help each other. And so if anybody gets interested, there are you can just look up LCAN, you could go to their website. I'm not gonna click on these because I wanna get to Cody, but if I did, it would activate. Do you want me to test if your system works, Mary? Okay. I won't click on it. But LCAN, you can look that up on the computer yourself. And this slide, that Kara Kolovich, she now is employed by the city of Lander to be this person that weaves sustainability into the city plans and is the liaison between the citizen group or the city employee group and the planning people that are actually with the tractors or nails or whatever they're doing. That's a paid position. So they've come a long way compared to what we have in that regards. They have people in place that are paid. The city of Lander made a proclamation about their carbon emissions and their goals to reduce it and to make their city buildings energy efficient. One thing I learned by doing this presentation was this thing called SNP. Do any of you know how to SNP? Raise your hand if you know how to SNP. Come on. It's a really cool thing. Like in Windows, you know that little like waffle thing on the left? You click on that and eventually you'll see this thing called SNP. And then you have to know to say new in SNP and then go back to the website where you were. But then you get the cursor over and snip that out. And so that's why this is a little fuzzy, because it's a SNP, but it has all the information there. I didn't have to type it over. But so Lander, Lander Climate Action Network has a task force. They got funding to do their inventory. They presented that to the city. They got a person that can help advise city council and then be this liaison also with the county. Lander also made some good suggestions about how to do their water treatment and pumps. They have this air source heat pumps. Do you want me to take the time to explain it to you? No. Yeah, but that's fine. It works, and it works in cold environments. And all it's doing is taking wherever it's hot and moving hot to cold, and then moving a fan, a belt. That generates the energy to do whatever you want. It's just like our hydroelectric moving the turbines, but and then so in the summertime when it's hot outside, you can use that heat energy to cool the inside. And when it's cold in the outside in the winter, you can use the heat. It's a cool thing.
Magic.
And then, so Lander is really looking into not just like, oh yeah, we should change our fleet and we should improve our energy efficiency. They've actually got the infrastructure tools, what they're going to order up and install. So we can let them test drive it, but it's there. We can retrofit and do things better. There's a lot going on now about not using carbon in the pipes and lead. We don't really have to worry about lead in our water, but nationally, that's headline news right now. So I don't think Cody think that we don't have access to the highest grade technology that's available. We just have to know how to look for it and get it. Lander did a great job in their assessment evaluating different electric vehicles and what that would take to change them. But they know that charging stations are coming and they have them. And then there's always the upfront cost of the new vehicle. And so they're working out their business. So vehicle fleet exchange, that's a slightly different model of how are you going to fund it, how are you going to implement it, who's going to do that, than changing the energy efficiency of a city building. So we could get kind of overwhelmed, but I think the plan is the same for each of these sectors, is that you need like a leadership group. You need to state the goals, like we're using this much kilowatts and we're emitting this much. We want to at least bring that back this way. And then we'll show you that we did. And so I don't think we can solve a lot of things at the same time by applying the effort of us, the effort of the people in the cities to bring our talents to the right task force. And that was always been our goal of Earth Team. We needed 3 task force are, how did we say it in the beginning? Our desire for our renewable energies, our recycling, and our food issues. I don't know if I said that. I mean, food sensitivity. Lander also I thought this was really cool. They made goals and sort of a baseline assessment for the people that are in the city staff. Like what they could actually, they're being paid by the city, but now they get to test drive the vehicles. But they're participating. They're becoming a stakeholder. They define things for the city council and mayor. And so I think that the communication between the Lander Climate Action Network and the city can really inform us. That we need a person that works for the city. I do, but that's enough. But I'm getting to know the people that are going to go tighten the pipe down at the water splash. That actually might be a lifeguard. It might be me. So I'll get to drive a city truck. So Lander did some really good things, not just as their climate network. They sort of had foots in the doors in these other arenas, and I think that's really led to their success. And then they were the ones that had this sort of flow diagram that I thought was kind of a nice to fall asleep to. Because we do need to do a greenhouse gas emissions inventory. And while we're doing that, we might as well know what we're spending on kilowatts and what we're spending on fuel as a city. And to just, we need to keep defining the people who will be the point people at these different, the leadership commitment. I think we have a very workable city council, workable like I'm gonna use them, work-withable. A group. I certainly have found out on Earth Team, like I didn't know Joni before, and we work really well together. And Hap and Mary and you guys being here, I think that speaks a lot, that we can do this. Having the inventory will give us the ability to monitor our progress, and then I think it's really important that we make good decisions. So once we decide to implement, it's okay that we're not moving at rocket speed. Like last year, I just felt like so frustrated. Why don't we just do this? And now I understand a lot more that we're not being slow. We have to really, we're discovering that we already have LED lights on the street lights. Our school already has LED lights. I didn't know that. Where is it written? Why isn't it, why don't, we have solar panels, but why didn't that catch on? So we could still do more. We could try to challenge them. Where are the other congregations, I ask you? We were trying to get a whole bunch of other people besides us, because we want to encourage everybody, individuals. We should all do our energy audit ourselves. I mean, you can't. You pay your energy bill, see what your kilowatt hours are. We have access to John Osgood, who will be more than happy to help you make it more efficient. I digress. Okay, so Lander also has funding. Their city is working with them. They're using, and a lot of people are using this ICLEI as their emissions calculator. That number that right now I'm just sticking with the 4.33 times 10 to the minus 4. That'll be the answer. Okay, just so you know.
Say it one more time, please.
4.33 times 10 to the minus 4. Metric tons of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour. Okay. The city of Cody is organized. It has a website. It has 7 departments. Yeah, talk about Cody now.
It has a really good recycle.
Can you tell from whence this picture came? Like the angle of where I'm at? Or
Did you snip it?
It's actually, yeah, I did. Anybody? The answer walked in the door.
Great.
Okay, it's just below the Buffalo Bill Museum staff got you, but turn to the right a little bit. Okay, so there's 7 departments. They each have a director and some have divisions. We have facilities that use energy and heat, but the rec center is quite good. All of those light bulbs are upgraded to LED. They went with a very kind of expensive kind. Oh, incidentally, Laramie also had Honeywell right there to help them fund things, help them do the audit, help them install the solar arrays. So they're just way ahead in that regard. So they have now industry as a part of their citizen group. Right now, we have citizen group, and we'll merge with citizen group city county. That's what Park County Citizens for Sustainability pretty much says it all, doesn't it? And then Red Lodge was Red Lodge and its county. Lander and its kind of gets Riverton and some others in there, and the Wind River Reservation. But we have all these buildings. There's more. There's 20 buildings in Cody. Park County Citizens for Sustainability Steering Committee is working with the mayor, and there was sort of a change with Rick Manchester retiring, but there is a city person that goes around and knows every project, whether it's this bathroom is getting a new stall in this park, or the pump house needs this, or the workshop needs this, or the rec center's pumps for the pools need that. The city has the people in place, and I've watched them at the rec center. I've watched them, come and fix this. It's a good place. And the city cares. The problem is I don't know what they've done. So I'm still not a good resource. Like, oh, Catherine, don't you know everything that's happened? And I don't.
Canal Park has the solar lights. Do you know that?
I didn't know that. But how are we going to know?
I always want to go there in the dark and look to see if they're working. But underneath all those cement benches are solar lights, and the solar collector is over by the metal building, installed by those guys in Lander.
So I think
I hope they're working.
I think that that's going to be an area that's like over the next several months. I mean, I'm not going to solve it all next week, but with Park County Steering Committee, our Citizens for Sustainability, you see that with it. I guess it's a steering committee. We're going to get to know what's going on and where, and we do have some grants identified. Catherine Kyle is really good at proposals, foundations, what you need to have. The baseline assessment is going to be huge for us to have as a tool as we write grants to fund a city position, to help the recycling, right? That would be really good. Recycling is part of our city. So if we could get somebody at the recycle center to join the steering committee, that'd be fabulous. But I think this is what we're working on. We're gonna get a greenhouse gas inventory. That's gonna tell us these buildings are targets, this water treatment, that. I'm very confident in the city planners. I'm not sure that we have to infiltrate the get a hard hat, but maybe. But so I want you to feel hopeful. We know what to do next, get our baseline assessment. This was supposed to sort of show you, to remind you where we came from, just in case I had a little more time. If you weren't at the first Thursday night where Mary went through the inroads, this is a picture of our choices that got us to 1.8 degrees, not warmer than 1.8 degrees by the year 2100. And notice where the red star is increasing the building's industry energy efficiency. And just to see that simply, that goes with having our baseline inventory, don't you think? Like if we can know, then we know that we can improve. Where can we improve? It'd be really nice to get more industry or businesses, like doing their inventory as well. Because then they could see their own improvements. And that's actually a really good way for stakeholders. It's like your own self. You can go see, like, I don't like using the microwave as much as my other people I live with, because I don't wanna use the electricity. I'll just have cold water.
Does it use a lot more?
I don't know, it's just that it's something like it is electrified, but I don't want, and then what could, unfortunately, the riding mower is gasoline, and I like the smell of gasoline when I'm filling it up. So, but the point is, I think it would be kind of neat, maybe it's a community project that the Service Corps wants to do just in your household. Or if we had time right now, it would make you break out into small groups, but I know that this has been educational and somewhat maybe entertaining, that it's just fine to keep going. But the point is, Andy Rose, we have Andy Rose, and he has a worksheet that I've used in my classes, and it takes every appliance and tells you the wattage it uses. And then you just have to go around, well, I do turn that light on, Mark, and I'd just be curious what our congregational household kilowatt usage is.
Could we have that?
I mean, I think
to us?
I could make like a survey. Oh, you're this, what is it called? Monkey survey?
Survey Monkey?
Yeah, you could apply your Survey Monkey. We could come up with the questions, and then all you have to do, it might take you, I would like you to take your time and think about it before you fall asleep. Oh, I did use that. Sort of give yourself a chance to be reflective on what your electrical use, what is gas, what is electrical. And then, because I really was prepared, we also had, on our second night, we had Scott Richards and Rod and Lynn, and they really helped us understand the importance of planting and food storage. But I get the chance to brainwash you into the importance of our landfill. And in case you weren't sure what methane was, there's the carbon and 4 hydrogens. And when you have organic material in the decomposing, you can't help it. You're breathing out right now. That is, if you're alive, your waste product is CO2. It's the same for all your cells. You take in oxygen and you exhale CO2. It costs to live. I want you to live. But I want to handle our waste appropriately, and that's the big news about landfills, is not putting the dead animals or anything a lot, that wasn't decomposing, and just having it emit these gases. So we could do more with planting, we could stop deforestation, and the methane thing, when we got to the 1.8, it was because we really reduced those gases. And so I'm pretty much out of air, but I thought you might like to see what it looks like when it burns. And so this is just a picture of a Bunsen burner with different amounts of methane gas. And so the highest concentration, it makes that last this nice blue. Oh, I'm pointing at it, but you are on the bottom right. I mean, it's a fuel, and that's what's heating up the earth because there's so much of it accumulated. The one thing about accumulation is there's going to be a surprise. The wind will blow tumbleweed in and out of this corral, but enough of them get stuck. And stuck, it accumulates. And in models that have accumulation, you want to be able to exploit that. If it's readily available and it accumulates, could you use that somehow to power something? But otherwise, you're going to get a surprise. And I'll make you all twist your neck. But the whole point. That is not the sun. This is the marginal return curve. And you want to be down here, some good little innovation where a little bit of input, some money, gives you a big return. You don't want to be way out here where you have a whole bunch of money and you're not getting anything out of it. And so, in biology, there's all kinds of systems that go through what's a time of being on this side of the marginal return. Times are good, innovation, things are working. Leaf cutter ants actually milk a caterpillar, and that gives them nutrition when there isn't leaves. And so that relationship with the caterpillar, they're getting energy out of it, but they innovate it. Not every ant can do that. Budworm density in the pine trees, that's a 100-year cycle. And what happens is you have a similar marginal return curve. You're not going to like this, but this is the density over the density now of budworm density. And at first, you don't have a very big budworm density, and the budworm density population goes up. And so the next time there's more budworm densities. Here, there's enough densities that birds see the budworms and eat them. And that means that the next time the density count's done is actually less than it was before, so it goes down. But the budworm density is still going up, it's just what's changing their system. And eventually, it's okay, the budworm density is something, and they start to take off that the density next time is more than the density now. And what happens out here in time is, it's at 100 years, the tree that they're living on collapses. And so when you get to this type of disaster coming, you want to crash it and get back to here as fast as you can. And that's what some people, that's why some climate activists, we've calmed down a bit. We've calmed down a bit because there's an urgency to just get onto the new systems and be on this side of the marginal return. One little innovation is we can get somewhere with it. So I'm very hopeful. Like the battery, they were told like 10 years ago with the batteries, though they have gotten better. But now we don't even have to worry about batteries because we can just work on getting to the grid. We can work on our landfill. Megatons emitted in landfill is the biggest thing that to reduce our city's emissions, that was another, it wasn't a surprise, but that's what jumps out. But it's a whole nother system to deal with landfill use. It's not the same as energy efficiency in the building. You see what I'm saying? But the point is to get to every sector to be as sustainable as it can be with good ideas, and those take time. So that's, I wasn't Catherine Eklund, but
But you were Catherine
I
Reinitz.
was Catherine.
You were great.
Catherine audience.
What was the amount of electricity that Red Lodge was using for street lighting?
The actual number,
Well, I remember it being a much bigger percentage than I might have
it was like
expected.
21%, I think was what it was.
Can
And
you
it
go to the
cost,
dark sky community and just shoot them all out?
you know, that would have been, instead of me tonight, we might have had a dark sky speaker. So,
Red Lodge.
yeah. So, I mean, I think one of the things to do is keep having supper series, and now maybe we can focus on a wind. We haven't talked about wind, and Catherine Kyle is pretty passionate about what Uruguay's just done with their wind. I think that we can have, one of the things Lander does is they have education. They do a lot of outreach. Oh yeah, I meant to say this at the Lander thing. They're gonna have another summit. They have these meetings where they bring together, and so we don't necessarily have to have a summit, a climate summit in Cody. But
Why not?
we could. It's just that Lander has one. We should just, make sure some of us go to Landers. I think we should keep the communities, keep communication. It's not exclusive, it's inclusive, but we don't have to, I don't know, it seems like that's a big project to put on a summit. But what I really want to do is get the inventory done. right? So, but we wanna do it all. And I think that that's why we have to keep meeting. I don't think I don't have all the ideas, but I do know that the lowest one practical first next step, we've made progress since 2 weeks ago, right? We've got to 1.8 degrees warmer, not 3.3 degrees warmer.
Can I just say something? The Cody setting, the Northwest Wyoming setting, is very different than the Lander setting. And Catherine and I will disagree a little on this, and you can be the judge. But
You win.
2 years.
Well, that was too easy.
When we were evaluating ourselves 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, and we were talking about the summit idea, we had a pretty good group of people. It was very negative to that. It was very negative to it, saying you're gonna blow it up if you do that. Don't talk about Lander, really don't talk about Jackson. And Catherine had the chart with at the top of it, the greenhouse emissions being the thing we're gonna measure. And that would blow up. What's happened in Cody, and Catherine did mention this and gave Cody credit, she's really right to, but they actually they have a list of all the things they've done and they're doing. And the street lights, all the lead lights, all of that are part of it. They're planting 20 trees a year. Nobody knows that. It's a conscious, we're planting 20 trees a year. They have a list of the things they're doing. And it's all under the guise of not emissions. It's reducing costs.
Yeah.
So that's the language, and Nick Patrick at one of our gatherings said, money talks. If we can save money with things, and that's what they've done. That's how Mayor Hall talks about what they do. That's the language they use, and Cody's, because of that, has they buy into that, and that's a good way to go at it. We just go and save money. We're gonna be able to be very successful.
And I mean, that goes to the individual too. I mean, if you can do your own, maybe, I mean, it is just a calculator, but if you want to go with your budget and what you pay out to the power companies or for gas, you can do your own. You can really see that the numbers speak to individuals too, and I think that the things that I really enjoyed about putting together this presentation was learning the role of the city and the volunteer citizen groups, so that it wasn't like the citizens telling the city what to do. It was the citizens that are part of the city working because the city wanted the help. The city has some good ideas about how to implement. They really do. And so, right, I'm also a little surprised at the population of Lander and how much they got done compared to the population of Cody. And so Lander's like 7,000 people, and we're 10,000 people. Yeah. And we, in all of these supper series, we haven't really talked very much about Northwest College. But they have buildings, so like an individual. We haven't talked about like Walmart, which has a great roof for solar array. We have, so I think, just be patient, we're proceeding. And we're gonna make good decisions because we are in communication with these other places. And then we have singular talents in John Osgood. And I'll make this available somehow, but he has a whole list of only 9 well thought out ways to sustainability measures. So maybe we could put this in, I don't know, some of it's a little bit, like if you talk about solid waste, set up a solid waste costing structure. where more solid waste, garbage, trash you generate, the more you pay. What do you guys think about that? How's that gonna fly? Right now, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, you know, one size fits all is the problem, but we're not that big anyways. I mean, if your neighbor, I don't want it to be like a neighbor versus neighbor. I want it to be, this is better for all of us. Is there a better way for all of us to manage our waste? So we're all stakeholders in the new practice. I agree not to make it a political thing. It's more fun to work together and make a good decision and then get the thing implemented. Reduce highway speed limits. This will save fuel and lives. It will not be popular, but it will lessen carbon dioxide production and make roads safer. Ration fuel, if we're really serious. Build. This was my latest. What I really want, besides the landfill to be fixed, I want a solar train across Wyoming. And then on it could be a library car. If it's parked, it can have solar panels, we have an espresso machine, just to emphasize. And then, but have it be the food hub, connect the food hubs by a solar train. So, you know, I think that would really be good. It would save that's the one thing that, from the food talk, well, we know we have a short growing season. If it's local, you don't have to spend money on fuel. The packaging was a huge thing, right? We could do something about that. We don't have to buy packaging. We can just go get the food itself. But wouldn't it, to get it to these food hubs, wouldn't that be nice just to bring that up to like a solar train that's a root cellar in the winter? I mean, so if I can just.
Solar train is a root cellar? Why not?
You see it?
Wait a minute.
If it's parked. It can roll and root. I mean.
You better have a big ton.
Catherine, do you think there are any questions tonight for you? Or are we?
I have a little comment, not a question, but we kind of caught the tail end on morning edition out of the Wyoming Public Radio this morning. We were talking about, I'm going to say Havre, someplace in Montana.
Electric school
The
buses?
school buses, where the community had decided to replace its superannuated school buses with electric ones. Who knew that there even was such a thing as an electric school bus? But there it is. And he was just talking about how much money they were saving and how much cheaper, because of grants and this and that and the other thing, how much cheaper it was to buy the fleet or the 2 buses, and they're going to get some more, and then how much cheaper it was. And I suppose, you know, if they have a school bus barn that's probably heated, so they didn't have the issue with the cold, things are probably plugged in all the time.
Well, actually,
Well, the other thing that it talked about, I didn't see what you saw, but there was an article in the Billings Gazette in regard to what you are speaking about. And it was probably a month or so ago, and it was a lovely article. But the other thing that they talked about with the school buses, the electric school buses, is they were having so much better luck with getting them because they're heavier because of the weight of the battery. And so there was much less concern about the buses getting stuck or sliding or. So it was, I mean, it was really a good article.
Positive.
It was very positive.
Our very own Jessica Case and some of the school board is already looking into an electric bus. So that there is this grant, and then so Clark County Citizens for Sustainability are sort of getting in the news about these funding prices, and then what we want to do is sort of bring Powell and Metis, even though they're a different school system, they could apply for that same grant. And then another funding source it's like they'll fund you, but you already have to have funds from, so other stakeholders, so I think the school bus thing is gonna take off. Keep going with the street lights, that's happening. 3 buildings have been identified by the city, 3 of the 20, that are gonna get the energy audit. And I'm not sure who, Pat might know, but who's writing that grant to fund that we have a professional consultant hired to do the city audit of all the buildings. And then would they also, and then not to underestimate that we have Andy Rose. Were there questions from the streamers?
There's no questions from the streamers. So maybe we can wrap up and have informal conversation.
That's what I think,
So-
and just remember to save some steam for next Thursday.
Gotcha.